Hey F1 fans, welcome to After the F1 Canada race. Let's see who moved up and who moved down. This race had started in the rain and so it was super exciting. By lap 18 it finally stopped raining enough to enable DRS. But because more rain was forecast, most drivers just continued on intermediates until it was finally dry enough to finally switch to slicks around lap 45. Tons of stuff happened. Many drivers were out. Let's take a look. Okay, let's see what happened with the teams. Wow, something's definitely happening with my computer today. Yeah, so we have Alpine moving up and Williams moving down. Williams moves down because both cars were out, and Alpine moves up because both drivers finished in the points in P9 and P10, which hasn't really happened for them this season. So they're a little bit up. The rest of the field is the same. Yeah, both Ferraris were out. We've got both Mercedes took advantage of the second safety car to switch to new tires with 11 laps to go, giving them an advantage into the closing laps where they raced each other. It was really exciting, as well as taking a serious shot at P2. Both drivers are much happier with the car in general. The Aston Martins in P5 in the championship finished P6 and P7 in the race, which is better than they've done as a team in a long while. Usually it's just Team Alonso, so this time it was different. The Haas drivers started on full wets in the rain, doing something different, and it paid off big time because they both gained 9 positions, but it didn't end up helping them get into the points in the end because, of course, after that they had to pit and down they go. And finally the Saubers decided to change their rear wing before the start of the race, so they both started from the pit, but again it didn't really help because both still ended well outside the points. Let's take a look at the drivers. All right, here's our first driver swap. Yeah, my PC's really struggling with something right now, even though I've closed everything. We have Daniel Ricciardo. He started in P5 and he finished in P8. He drove a good race, and even though he got a 5-second penalty for moving, his car moved before the lights out at the starting grid, and you just can't do that. So he got that 5-second penalty and served it and still ended up in P8. So definitely a good race from him. While of course Ollie Behrman moves down because, you know, he's not driving, but he's still hanging in there amazingly. And of course Nico Hülkenberg started in P17, finished in P11, no points, just outside the points, and narrowly avoided Yuki when he spun out. That was a real close call, but he did it. Of course it must have slowed him down, but no crash. Really well done there. All right, let's see what's next. Yes, we have another switch up. We have Pierre Gasly going up. All right, Pierre Gasly started in P15. In fact, both Alpines started very low, but he finished in P9. They switched to slicks a bit too soon, so that was a little bit of a disaster, but they had to risk something because they were way back there and they just had to try something. In any case, he managed to fight back up to P9 for 2 points, which is more than an Alpine driver has managed all season. So good job on Pierre Gasly. Alex Albon moves down, of course. The rest of them moved down because Gasly moved up. He started in P10, good quali, but he ended up not finishing because he got knocked out towards the end when Sainz spun out. Other than that, he drove a great race. He did a lot of passing and he enjoyed himself, he said. Esteban Ocon started P18, finished in P10, adding 1 point. But not enough to move up. He also slides down in favor of Gasly. And finally, Kevin Magnussen started in P14, finished P12. After gaining those 9 places on the wets at the start of the race, he stopped for intermediates and got a very slow pit stop. And his second pit stop was also somewhat slow. So that just kind of kills everything. Fell all the way down to P14 at that point, and all that glorious passing was for naught. So no points again. And then there's the rest. So we have Max. Let's see, I'll just put some notable mentions there. Max started in P2. He did not have pole position, but still managed to finish P1. He really had to work for this one. It was touch and go for the podium positions. I just realized I'm wearing my headphones and I don't need to be doing that. The drivers had to be flawless basically in these tricky conditions where it was raining and not raining, and there was like just a one lane of dry where if you ventured off anywhere just a little bit, you lost your traction. And so many drivers had very close calls, and some of course spun and crashed out. So you pretty much had to be flawless to be on the podium this time around. As well as the pit stops had to be perfect, as well as the strategy had to be perfect. And yeah, Max and Red Bull did it all. Charles started in P11 and did not finish because there was something strange with his engine starting on lap 4 that he reported. They tried a few things during the race, but ultimately it was hopeless and they retired the car. So they're just gonna have to figure that out. And it's really amazingly sad for the Ferraris after being like on top of the world, with Charles winning Monaco, and Sainz being right up there last time, to this. Ah, well. Okay, so Lando, he started in P3, so really good quali. He could have qualified P1. I mean, any of them up there, I think, could have if they put a perfect lap together. And he finished in P2 because he managed to pass Max with DRS near the beginning of the race, putting him in P2 to chase George. He passed George and then pulled away from them more than 10 seconds. So he had a huge lead. However, then the first safety car happened, and it happened just as he was passing the pit lane, so not quick enough to decide to go in for that tire change. The competitors, of course, did. So he actually fell back 2 places in that exchange. And then later, when everyone was pitting for slicks, they tried something. He was driving in P3 at the time, and they stayed out on the intermediates for 2 more laps. And I thought this was like, oh my God, this is a huge mistake. They've done it to him again. However, he managed to come out in front of George and almost in front of Max. So actually it looked like it was an overall gain, but then he had to warm up the tires. So it looked like he might stay in that P2, but then Russell got him on a DRS a couple laps later before his tires were really ready, and he just couldn't push any harder at the moment. So in the end, it didn't work, but it was a very interesting play. And then later on, Russell made a mistake and Norris got to pass him again, and that's how he managed to finish in P2. Okay, let's see. Sainz started in P12 and didn't finish because he spun out and took out Alex Albon, and they were both out. So that was very sad. Sergio started very low and did not finish. He spun out in lap 54, right out of the race. And he now has a 3-place grid penalty for the next race for driving back to the pits with a damaged car, which was deemed too dangerous, and he should not have done that. So that's unfortunate, and we'll see that next time around. Then we have some real good racing between Oscar, George, and Lewis. So let's just revisit that for a moment. Oscar started in P4 and finished in P5. It was really came down to towards the end of the race when Oscar was on fresher tires. It was actually Russell and Hamilton on fresher tires. So they put a lot of pressure on Oscar, who was running in P3 at the time. Russell tried to pass him, but messed up. So Hamilton then managed to pass both Russell and Piastri to get into P3. Russell then passed Piastri as well, knocking him off the podium finish completely into P5. As for George, He started P1, so it was wonderful for him. It was a pole position, but he finished in P3, still on the podium. But yeah, just before the end, he managed to pass Hamilton back to finish in P3, but Hamilton still got the fastest lap. So there we go, the three of them. Really good racing there, passing back and forth and back and forth. Once Max had sort of secured P1, Lewis started P7 and finished P4, so that was actually really brilliant. But yeah, we said he lost that P3 to Russell and he got the fastest lap. And then I always like to mention Yuki because he's becoming one of my favorite drivers. So Yuki started P8 but unfortunately finished P14. So there was some interesting strategy there. He, along with Ocon and Bottas, ended up not pitting during the first safety car and just simply stayed out on the original intermediates because there was more rain forecast later on. So they drove those like into the grave, but skipped a pit stop. The rain did come and it paid off. Leaving Yuki running in P7 for a long time, and he would have stayed there, but sadly later on Ocon passed him, and when he tried to pass Ocon back, he spun out, leaving him in P14. But it was a great race, and he was definitely ahead of Ricardo up to that moment. So good job, Yuki. Keep it up, keep your head together. Love it. Mr. Logan Sargent, I think he signed his death warrant there because he actually went into a wall twice in this race, and he was the one to bring on both of the safety cars. He started in P13, and with all the attrition, he could have definitely done better, and better than Albon, who got taken out in this particular race. But unfortunately, he was Mr. Crash. And yeah, both safety cars were due to him. Not a happy result. He's very disappointed in himself, so I feel kind of bad. Next up, we have a triple header. It's going to be packed and exciting. We have Spain, we have Austria, and we have UK. So yeah, home of Saints and Alonso, then Austria, home of Red Bull, and UK, home of so many of the British drivers, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris. I hope I didn't miss anyone. This should be a no-brainer. So yeah, we should be seeing some more moves at that point because I'll do the next video after all three races. So that's going to be cool. I look forward to it. Have a great time watching them all, and like if you like, subscribe to help grow the channel, and see you back here after 3 races.